Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Jacob and Jacob podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Hare. As always, joined by my co-host, Jacob Robaum. And today we're joined by the legendary broadcaster, Kevin Harlan. Kevin, thanks for being with us today.
It's great to be on with you guys. Thanks for the invitation, and always fun to talk to young, aspiring broadcasters.
Yeah, we're really grateful that you came on. So from two people who are trying to get into the business, why did you decide to become a broadcaster?
Well, I think my dad was in sports. I had played sports, but had been around sports as a young kid and had a chance to work in press boxes and be around broadcast booths when I was younger. And it really appealed to me. I can't say that it was any one moment. The first voice I ever remember was the voice of NFL Films, John Facenda. And you can go back and listen to some of his work, but he used to narrate NFL games. And I remember him and his voice when he was narrating Super Bowl I between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And I was about 7 years old. So it wasn't that I was really, geared in on the game, which, to an extent I was, but it was the voice that really captivated me. And I guess that kind of lit the fuse. And then I kind of paid attention from that point on and began then when I was about 10, 11 years old to do games off of the TV in my room with the sound down. And then things just kind of worked themselves out from there. So the more I got into it, the more I enjoyed it. And the more, you enjoy something, the harder you work to be better at it. And that it just kind of fell into place that way.
So what were some of your first jobs in the broadcasting world?
Well, aside from broadcasting to myself in my room when I was about 11 and 12 years old, I went to a high school in Green Bay, Wisconsin that had a student-run 10-watt radio station. I mean, a station that you could get, in your car if you were driving around. Now, the distance that station's signal traveled was about 10 miles in any direction, but it was still over the air. And the faculty was in charge, but the students ran the station. And that meant that we could broadcast our high school's games, hockey, soccer, basketball, swimming, wrestling, all of it. And we did. And that's kind of where I got my first taste of actually being on the air. And once that happened, then I was hooked. But that certainly at that young age really made a big difference.
So let's go into a bit of your preparation for games. So let's say you're calling Thursday night NBA on TNT. How do you prepare for that game?
It's interesting. I just came off the NCAA tournament, and that preparation is a little bit different than preparing for an NBA game. Really, we know the players so well in the NBA that you could do a game in that league with nothing in front of you except just a blank piece of paper and jotting down notes as you go along. And you could do the game just because I've done so many games with Kawhi Leonard or with Paul George or with Rajon Rondo or whoever, which was the case, when I did the game last night. In college, we only see a handful of teams doing games at CBS, and most of those teams are in the Big Ten. So I never see any Pac-12 teams, ACC teams, SEC teams, and on and on. So the preparation is a little bit stiffer and a little bit more in depth. But it's funny you ask about preparation because I after I did the game last night, and it was a West Coast game, so I guess I got to bed at 12:30. We live in the Central Time Zone, and I laid awake all night long because I wasn't satisfied with how I had laid out my boards, my information tablets, the notes I had taken. And I decided last night at about 5 a.m, rolling around, I'm going to revamp it. So I'm right in the middle of paring down my boards with players' names, numbers, and some individual notes on them. I'm gonna change or tweak how I do my team bullet points, darts, notes that I use. And I guess I'm going to have, not that I'm going to prepare less, but I'm going to have less written in front of me. And it really is kind of an ongoing cycle of tweaking how you are, whether it's how you sound, you listen to yourself one game and you talk too fast, or you don't talk fast enough, or you don't have enough energy, or you have too much energy. You're always making small adjustments along the way. And I think the same in preparation too. I'm gonna try different things. I guess what I want to say to myself is, I don't want to get to the end of my career and say, why did you stick doing it one way all the time, as opposed to evolving and trying to be better? And I guess I've just kind of sold out and trying to improve all the time, even though I've done the NBA since 1982 and done basketball in some form or fashion since about 1975.
So this season,
Now, with the NCAA tournament just concluding, and you obviously were in the bubble, what was that experience like for you? And also with having to call multiple games in a day, how was that?
The multiple games thing doesn't bother me as much. It's kind of the one thing about doing a lot of games in one day is it's not very fulfilling from a broadcast standpoint. I mean, you're proud that your voice has lasted 4 games. You're proud that you've been able to navigate 8 teams in one day, preparing for those 8 teams in a very short amount of time, and being able to hopefully not make too many mistakes. But it's a very unfulfilling day because you can't really get a lot of depth out of what you've done. You can't stamp it and say, you know what, I think I did a pretty good job on that game. Or say to yourself, gosh, I could have said, things differently 1,000 different times during that. Like you can't really savor it. You can't dwell on it. With the tournament in the first day and the second day, you're just bulldozing your way through those things, hoping that physically you've got the stamina to show as much energy in the second half of the 4th game you're calling that day as you did for the first half that you did, 10 hours earlier. So it's kind of like a survival broadcast day, as opposed to really a day you can sit back and appreciate and think, my preparation was there. I did everything I could do. I gave it my all. And, some days you got it and some days you don't. On the tournament, you just hope you survive more than anything else.
did you have a favorite game that you called in this past March Madness?
Well, I enjoyed certain games. I enjoyed Oral Roberts and how they had a chance to go to the Elite 8 with the best scorer in college basketball, taking an open 3-point shot that would have beaten the buzzer and sent them to the Elite 8 for the first time in school history. And the kid missed, but he was the highest scoring kid in college basketball. Smith was his name, from Oral Roberts. So that was kind of fun. I thought Arkansas Texas Tech was an exciting game because it went back and forth and was so good. I like Baylor Wisconsin because it was 2 big brand name Power 5 conference schools in a nice time slot on CBS that stayed relatively close. I enjoyed that, but sometimes you're left, I think, more disappointed than you are excited. Our Elite 8 game, our regional final between USC and Gonzaga, was dull and non-competitive when we thought of the Elite Eight games, it might have been on paper the best one going in, and it was clearly the worst. So, you just kind of you deal with the hand that's dealt you. You try to make the best of it. You shift on the fly, and that's never a perfect scenario. You just hope that your years of doing it in the past pay off when you encounter it again.
So with this NBA season in full swing, of course, you do games on TNT. How has it been calling games from home as opposed to actually being in the arena? How much more difficult has that been?
It's great that we're getting the games on, but it really is. I think the majority of fans get it that we're not there.
Yeah.
And there are some technical limitations, like there's a pretty significant delay on a big play in our call, which is frustrating. And I guess I'm more of a quick twitch announcer and can accelerate pretty quickly from 0 to 70. And you can't really do it on this because you're behind and you're almost trying to anticipate a little bit more. Not being at the arena, we can't see a lot of things happening off the ball or whatever, and that's weird. We had no fans in the NFL, so being by myself at home in my basement doesn't really change the arrangement much for me. So that is not a big deal. But I'll be anxious to get back to the arenas. This is a good Band-Aid, but nothing more than that. It's just a little bridge to get us back to where we once were.
Yeah, exactly. And you call NFL, college hoops, and NBA. Do you have a preference between the three?
Well, I like the NFL, I think, the most because it's the best broadcasting job. Doing the NFL, I think anybody would probably in this business say, now we have people that love hockey and love soccer and love baseball, and I get that. But critically, an NFL network play-by-play job is about as good a job as you can have in broadcasting. So because I value the job so much, because I was raised in the NFL from such a young age, I'd say the NFL. And that's radio and TV both. And I love radio. Second favorite probably is college basketball, because I think college basketball is easier with an analyst than the NBA. The NBA game is so fast that trying to squeeze an analyst in during the play-by-play doesn't fit. It's uncomfortable, and it really has to wait until there's a dead ball. Whereas in college basketball, there's a longer shot clock, 30 seconds. You can get a hard play-by-play call at the end of a possession after an analyst has given a good 10 seconds of his thought. You can finish off the prills every category. You can make a good basket, tie it up. The analyst can jump in, giving you enough room at the end of that clock to give a good 7-8 seconds of hard play-by-play. And it just fits. It's just easier. The NBA is difficult for an analyst to get in. And truth be told, the analyst should probably only talk when there's a dead ball, out of bounds, foul, free throw, because that's the only time that he can be expansive. Coming out of a commercial break, let him talk then. But when the play's going back and forth, there is no time for an analyst. And it's just, and especially when you're not in the arena, you're dealing with delays, and it's just not good.
Yeah, that was going to actually be my next question. I can't imagine how much more difficult it's been with the analyst chiming in when you're at home because of the different obstacles that you guys face.
Yeah, you can't do it. And then what happens is, if the analyst tries to chime in, while the play's going on, invariably you'll have a guy slash to the rim and make a quick play, and the analyst is left calling it, which is never good, unless it's a 20-point game. And that's not a hit at an analyst. That's not his job. His job is to analyze why something is happening, why it's working or why it's not. And the play-by-play's guy job is to talk about that slashing player, beating the defense and getting the layup. So it's just side, and until we can be pretty much back in arenas.
So, of course, since 2005, you've been the voice of 2K, the video game for the NBA. How did that come about, and what has it been to sort of see that grow over the years?
I'm really not sure how it came about. I know that initially they saw me doing games for TNT. I've been at TNT since 1996. So they probably, recognize a voice because I had been in the league, not only the 10 years at Turner, but previous 9 years with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and before that with the Kansas City Kings. So, I'd been in the league for a while, and I think they wanted a quote unquote, a recognizable voice. Maybe Marv turned him down. It might bring, I don't know. I don't know how I got it really. They called my guys in New York, my agent, and we worked it out. And when I first started doing it in 2005 or so, it was very basic. I had typed pages in front of me about that thick a pile, reading everything from numbers to just the basic things. I would say 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 3-3, 4-3, 4-4, like right on up to 120, right? And then I would have to say 1, 2, 3, 4, like we had to do that kind of stuff. And then you had to say the name of every player in the league, last name, then their whole name. Then you had to, and this is all typewritten and it was like that thick. It was like 2 phone books thick of pages to read. And it was one guy sitting back in a broadcasting booth, and I'd sit and read this stuff, wouldn't look at any tape, wouldn't look at any film, wouldn't see any highlights on a monitor. I just read the stuff. And then that evolved into, in my mind, making up plays. And all right, here comes Jacob down the lane, driving with the right hand, and he gets 2 in the, you have to come up with stuff like that. Here's a 3-point shot from outside. Good. I do all that stuff, just making up stuff in my mind. Then they finally asked me, they said, what would help you? I said, why don't you put a quarter of basketball on a tape, on some video, on a screen, and I'll just call it, and you can take highlights off of that, and we can begin to get some kind of actual play-by-play. So that's what they did. And then that led into a blossoming way of doing it now, which involves Zoom calls like in Ernie or whoever I'm doing it with, doing a game, talking about different topics that we've got in front of us that they want us to talk about. And then they just take clips and they just stick them in the game. And so it's become a real science. It's stunning how they put the game together and where it has evolved from 2005, my first year, to where it is now. We're getting ready to do 2K 2022 and tape that. It's like the non-internet versus the internet age. I mean, it's no cell phone versus having a cell phone. It's night and day. It's HD TV versus standard TV. It's like it's no comparison.
I have to ask this, but have you ever played the game before?
No, my son played, but he always played with the sound down because he didn't want to hear my voice. I don't blame him. I don't want to hear my voice, but he didn't want to hear my voice. So he turned down the sound. But I have more parents that will stop me at NBA arenas when we had full arenas. And they said, I hear your voice down out of our basement 24 hours a day. Our kids are playing that game of yours all the time. And so, what has been kind of nice is, kids your age have played the game. All they know is my voice. Mm-hmm. And that's fun, knowing that this a generation of basketball fan has grown up with that. I'm honored to be a part of the game. The game is morphing and evolving into so many different segments now. They've got German announcers, they've got French announcers, they've got Latin American out. They've got Spanish. They've got everything. Russian announcers, Italian announcers. They're expanding English-based announcers. So, there'll be a day when I'm not going to be a part of it, or will be a small part of it. But it has been nice knowing that over, the last 15 years or so, my voice has been with that game, and the game has done well, and I'm incredibly appreciative of that. But I have never played the game, and I'm sorry to say that. And I have watched very little of it. Appreciate what these people do, but no, I have not played the game.
Yeah, but don't worry. For our generation, you'll always be the voice of basketball.
Thanks. Thank you.
So during your career, you've made some unbelievable calls and countless ones that I can call off the top of my head. But what has been your all-time favorite call that you've made?
I'm kind of hoping that maybe I haven't made it yet. I don't know that I really. I mean, there have been some funny ones. There have been some, ones associated with great plays. Mm-hmm. The Kawhi falling out of bounds, ball, bouncing 4 times on the rim to win a series in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, we're Sixers fans, so that kills us.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, that was not a easy pill to swallow. I love the Sixers, but I'm a big Sixer fan. Big. Love Doc, certainly. Yeah. But love Ben and Joel, and I love that team. But anyway, so that was a pretty big call. There've been some Super Bowl calls I've had involving Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. Those have been fun. But I guess I'd like to think that my best call is ahead of me. My most memorable call is ahead of me. And I look forward to that. That's why I continue to, try to get better, evolve, constantly try to work on what I'm doing, because someday I'll be retired and I don't want to look back and say, I wish I would have worked harder at being better. I wish I would have listened to my tapes and taken more notes, or I wish I would have, looked at different ways to prepare or whatever. I really don't have many regrets right now. Mm-hmm. I probably have 10 plus good years, I think, maybe left in my career. So I'd like to think like the best is yet to come. So I don't know that I've had a call that I would say is my best. I'd like to just say, I hope it's right around the corner.
And I really like that answer.
And you talked about being a Sixers fan. Are you comfortable putting them in the finals right now?
Yeah, I watched Phoenix last night. I watched the Clippers last night. I don't think we know what the Lakers are going to be until LeBron and AD come back. Utah has been unbelievable. I think Brooklyn is going to be a chore. I think they're really going to be tough. Like I can't see Brooklyn games. I just can't. I hate to say it. But Embiid is right there with Jokic in terms of MVP. I know that there are some people that say, well, I missed 9 games because of the knee injury. But I think in this weird season, I think voters are going to look at players that have missed 8, 9, 10 games differently. In the past, I think that would work against you. I think in this weird season, I think they're not going to consider that as much. Now, you can't miss 20 games, but missing 8, 9, 10, I think there's a little room there. Problem is Jokic hasn't missed anything, and Jokic has been unbelievable. Like he's been everything Embiid has been. But Embiid has had Philadelphia until just the last couple of days, number 1 in the East. And Denver has not been number 1 yet. So this is going to be a tough one. But I like those two guys. I like Harden, even though I think some people will not vote for him because of how he got out of the trade and kind of waved the white flag and kind of quit on the Rockets. That didn't sit too well with a lot of the voters, I'm sure. So, but right now you'd have to say that Joel and Jokic are probably neck and neck for that MVP award, which would be great to have a center get it.
Yeah.
And when it all comes down to it for the NBA Finals, who's it going to be in July playing for the championship?
Well, if Brooklyn can ever get healthy, if Kawhi can ever get his off the court stuff ironed out, if Harden and Durant are healthy, they're going to be very difficult. Very, very difficult. But I like Philly, and there's only one MVP, and Embiid has been just amazing this year. Doc Rivers has won a championship before. Steve Nash is a first-year coach, but it's a players' league, and Brooklyn's going to be tough. But it would have surprised me if the Sixers are there. No, it would not. Brooklyn's going to be difficult. So if you're asking me now, healthy, I'd say Brooklyn, even over Milwaukee. And in the West, something tells me the Lakers are going to get themselves in trouble. I just can't. I don't know. Something just is not sitting right with them, with me. These guys are missing a lot of time, and they're both injury prone. And here they are. Well, AD is injury prone. This is LeBron's kind of one of his biggest, longest times in his career. He's missed time, but he's 6, 37. So I don't know. If I'm a Laker fan, I am skittish. So let me decide the way Utah plays, and I think the Clippers made a very good move in getting Rondo. But we'll have to see if they can get healthy too. They have had injuries they've dealt with. So it's all about health. And I just don't think we know. This is a weird year. And they're racing through it. There's not a lot of breathing space, not a lot of time between games. Any of those teams is one big injury from being knocked out. So I think it's close to impossible to pick anybody right now. And I'm not comfortable picking any two teams, but the 5 or 6 I'm looking at strongly, obviously.
Well, Kevin, we really appreciate you joining us today, and thank you for all the insight that you gave us, and thank you again for coming on. It was great speaking with you.
All right. Good to be on with you guys. Thanks for the invitation, and good luck to both of you, and stay healthy, stay safe, keep studying hard, and it was nice to get your invitation. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.